Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the show. I'm your host, Aaron Herman. We're here in White Plains, New York, at the Holocaust Garden of Remembrance. And today's Yom HaShoah, Holocaust Remembrance. And we're going to hear from community leaders what it means to them. Let's take a closer look. So, this Torah survived the Holocaust. What does that mean to you?
It's very important that we as a temple, as a community, are able to play our part with the holding this scroll in trust. It's survived a long time, written in the mid 1800s, survived through the Holocaust, made a journey to London, and entrusted with us here in Westchester County to hold for the future. And in the event that the congregation in that village in Czechoslovakia thrives again, we will return it.
With the rise of anti Semitism, it's important to understand where you come from. And the Torah is the idea of it is it's timeless, right? And so, even though you have this rise of anti-Semitism, we have this spirituality, this connection to our past, which leads to our future. What are your thoughts about like that opportunity to seize this time with like a Jewish joy and resilience?
You know, you grow up with stories. I grew up in the 60s and the 70s and the 80s, and stories of the Holocaust seemed distant. They were only 20, 30 years old in my childhood. It's frightening, but also feel prepared to know that, look, that education was there for a reason. We have to be ready to stand up against hatred.
Amazing. Thank you so much. Yom HaShoah is an emotional time, and when you have actually something that survived the Shoah is even more powerful. You're holding a Torah that survived the Holocaust. As a third generation Holocaust survivor, my grandmother always taught me to be, resilient, be proud of your Jew. What does it mean to you holding now a Torah that survived the Holocaust?
Obviously, that connection that between whatever community originally used it and ours in some very tangible way is very important. Actually, for me, the most meaningful part is when I'm carrying it and bringing it out for events on Yom HaShoah and elsewhere. Actually, holding that Chaim, the handles at the bottom, which are very large and just larger than other ones that I've seen, and just really putting my hand on it and imagining all the other people's hands that have held this over many generations and many miles, and being able to feel that connection to all of those people. So being able to actually physically hold it, is quite profound.
Throughout the ceremony, there was this idea of like, the rising anti-Semitism and being able to say proudly, we're Jewish, we survived. What's your take on, the rising anti-Semitism and again, the Jewish resilience that's needed now?
Yeah, I think it really goes back also to this object, to the stories and the values that are embodied in these Torah scrolls, where they're not just historical artifacts, but they're a living story that has kept us through many difficult times and many joyous times as well, and that you know there's not a whole lot we can control about the world around us, but we can control who we are and the kind of Jewish lives we lead, and embracing the Torah not just physically and not just as a something that sits in a museum case, but as something that really uh, uh, motivates and inspires how we live our own lives today is, I think, the secret and the source of that resilience.
When you think about Jewish values and how we all really need that connection to religion in our own way, the Torah is one of those things that bind us, no
Hmm.
matter
Hmm.
no matter what sect you are in Judaism, right?
Absolutely.
Tell us a little bit what this specific Torah means to you as it survived the Holocaust and especially this day, Yom HaShoah.
So this Torah was going to be collected for a museum. It was a small town outside of Prague. And so the Nazis were going to destroy the Torahs or provide them as a museum piece for the extinct Jewish race. And I love the fact that this Torah has survived so much and we read from it. This is a Torah that's living, and on Shabbat and on Thursdays, we read from this Torah. And to me, it just is an enduring spirit that is something that you can't describe. Something that was marked for death is alive and teaching.
There's this idea now of people kind of putting in their Magen Davids into their, their shirts, or not, if they're wearing yarmulke, taking off their yarmulke. What do you want to? What's your perspective on like the rise of anti-Semitism, but also the importance of showing your Jewishness?
So it's a very difficult question, of course, and I think that if we hide our Jewishness, if you normally wear a kippah and you don't wear a kippah, if you don't want to wear your jewelry outside, then in some way you're conceding victory to the anti-Semitic population. And I think the way that we can help each other is just having conversations, just meet people. Because I think that if people meet each other, then it's more difficult to say they're a Jew. There'll be something more, there'll be something that is less anti-Semitic in their conversations. They might still hate us, but they'll at least have a reason, is my point. And more importantly, they'll have a reason to say in the next conversation, when people say, oh, Jews are this, which is anti-Semitic, they can say, no, I met, in this case, Rick and you know, so that I think that's important.
You make a really important point there, where a lot of people just hate because it's like they have no idea like what a Jew is. They only saw it on social media, like Zios. They call for Zionists. They don't really understand or have even a Jewish friend, so they just go with the flow. But when you actually open to conversation,
Right.
you're able to do something meaningful.
And I think that's important. So, one of the things that was nice is in our grocery stores, as simple as that. There are areas kosher for Pesach food, and you can talk to people about it, and then they see something that is a connection. And I think that more and more people have more of a religious spirit. And one of my very good friends is a devout Catholic, and we have great conversations about Torah and the books that kept on going. So, it is a great thing just to be able to have an event. We see someone with a kosher restaurant and you say something to people. It's just have conversations. That's my thought.
Yom HaShoah is a very powerful day. When we say never again, we mean it, but it feels different now, right? Especially after October 7th. How do you feel about Yom HaShoah personally, and why this event is so important?
Well, so first I'll start off with the fact that my grandmother and grandfather left Poland, left Gdansk, on August 31st, 1939. And as you probably are aware, September 1st was the invasion of Poland. My grandmother had a couple sisters and a brother who were here in the U.S., but had her mother and sister and husband and nephew were still in Poland. They died in Treblinka. My grandfather also had family that was remained behind, including a sister who was in Auschwitz and ultimately also made it back to the U.S. So, this has deep meaning for me to remember what was done. We're, to your point, living in a time where the division, the anger, the hate is so prevalent. I used to say, I grew up in the 70s and 80s, and I remember seeing, walking down North Avenue to a shelter shul and having, kids in cars shouting slurs at me, actually, I remember one time bottles were thrown at me on North Avenue near a shell. Imagine that, right? And I remember when I had my own kids saying how proud I was, how much progress we've made, that my kids don't experience that level of hate in the streets every day.
And what's interesting is that point where it's like there's been a change,
It's definitely switched
but
back.
we're seeing also this rise of anti-Semitism. Like, unfortunately, my son, we live in Westchester, very safe neighborhood, had an anti-Semitic situation at Ridge Hill,
Wow.
right?
Wow.
Like, he was surrounded by high school kids
Mhm.
and asked for pro-Israel, pro-Palestine, and then he did the right thing and walked away. And as he walked away, they went Zionist, Zionist. To my 12-year-old at the time, right? So we're seeing this like empowerment on their side, saying like, okay, like, because of social media and the way that they're sort of indoctrined.
Right.
And so we do see it less, but we're also seeing this other side of it.
Yeah. Well, but my kids are older, right? My
Right,
youngest
right.
is 21, and my oldest is 30. So when they were growing up, they didn't experience it, but now they're starting to see it. My youngest is seeing it a little bit more than others, but my daughter also, and that's where I was going. And I'm sorry, I'm a little long-winded today, but yeah, I mean, in the last, I don't know, I want to say 10 years or so, we've really seen a drastic progression to where we are today that is horrendous, that is really terrible. And we can't be on this path. We can't be on this path. We have to speak up. We have to speak out. We have to protect ourselves, and we have to stand up for what's right, because the folks who are doing what you just described, right? The anti-Zionist folks who are basically scapegoating Jews for scapegoating Jews in the U.S. for things that are happening in Israel, and in a way that is just completely unacceptable and completely, it's not because they're anti-Israel, right? A store in Westchester, is not complicit in the genocide, right? I mean, it's just that's a bunch of BS. There's nothing there. It's just a way of creating fear. When I grew up, and again, I apologize for being long-winded, but when I grew up, they were talking about the communists, and it seems like the modern day communist is the Zionist, and it is so dangerous for us in the Jewish community.
I want to say thank you for everything that you do for the community and being a representative. It means a lot to us and taking the fight, right?
I do the best I can. It's not an easy fight. It gets harder every day, but I'm doing the best I can.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for what you do as well.
Thank you. Yom HaShoah is a very emotional time. Your speech was really powerful. A call to action of remembrance, people that were close to you. We're living in unbelievable times, right? Where, after October 7th, there was this understanding that when you say like never again, right? Like we mean it, but we're seeing it does happen again, right? I heard it from my grandmother, her stories of the how she survived and how she went forward.
As I said in my speech,
Yeah,
my
and-
grandparents and great aunts and uncles and all the Seder tables were filled with stories of, on one side we were Russian and it was pogroms, and on the other it was the Holocaust, and how people got out and they knew people didn't get out. And on my wife's family, they lost many direct relatives.
Why is it so important now to like continue that stories? Like those stories matter. Tell us, like for you, like why is that important?
Well, the stories are important because the survivors are dying out and people are forgetting. And as you know, there's a tremendous rise in anti-Semitism, and in general, there's a rise in hatred. And we have to remember what people went through, as I said in my speech, so we don't repeat it. And we need to be aware, and we also have a tremendous responsibility. I often say that one of the problems in the Jewish community is that people misunderstand us, and they think we're just selfish and we only care about ourselves. And sometimes we're a little too insular. We need to be more involved in the broader community so that people see we care about all the different communities. We care about blacks and Latins and immigrants and Muslims and everybody. We want to build a better society, and we are misunderstood both from a hatred perspective and a misunderstanding.
When I first moved to White Plains, I was doing a walk around the community, and I came around to this area, and I was like so impressed that there's actually like a remembrance, like there's a garden of remembrance. Like, do you know how did this all start?
It was a long time ago, way before I moved in here. They built this garden. I don't know the whole story, but I know that I've been to this ceremony more than a dozen times, and that they have it every year, and it's beautiful. As you saw, they bring in Torah scrolls that survived the Shoah, the Holocaust, and it's very beautiful.
And for me, that's very important for a city to make a decision to make a Holocaust memorial.
Well, we do this with the county.
Right, the county.
The county has to get credit too, but it's something that's been done for decades, and it's very important. But I mean, particularly in today's era, as you know, Holocaust denial is on the rise, and those are the kinds of things we have to fight. And my message to all Jewish people is you have to be more involved. People need to be more involved. Make sure that there's more Holocaust education. And in general, make sure that the most vulnerable are taken care of. Because whenever societies don't take care of the most vulnerable, we, the Jewish community, are always part of the most vulnerable and get affected.
I want to talk a little about resilience, right? So when you saw those Torahs walking out, and I got to interview some of the people who were holding it, and it just, the Torah is timeless, right? And being able to see here really a cross spectrum of the community, from the Jewish community and allies. What's your message to like the non-Jewish community about like why it's important to sort of come together?
Well, as I said before,
Yeah.
I think I quoted George Santayana that those who forget history are doomed to repeat it, and we know that the danger is here. There's a lot of hate and intolerance in America. As I said, when I was a kid, it was unacceptable to be full of hatred and intolerance, and today it's somehow acceptable. And as a community, we need to remember what can happen when hatred and intolerance are allowed to flourish. Remember, the Holocaust didn't happen overnight. It started little by little by little by little. And, as I said, one of my good friends who died this past year was a 97-year-old Holocaust survivor who you knew, Ezra Berkowitz. He and I could talk about anything, and he would freely, and a lot of survivors would not, his stories of the Holocaust. But the main thing he said to me that was very important is he said, remember, it happened so quickly. The hatred and the intolerance and the growth and the desire from being friends and neighbors to want to kill us happened so quickly. And that's why we all have to be vigilant, remember the Holocaust, stand proud as Jews, and stand with our allies, and stand with others who are vulnerable.
Well, thank you so much for all your work.
Thank
I
you.
really appreciate it.
Keep it. You're trying to help the community, and we all need to work and do more. Thank you, Aaron.
Thank you. So one of the traditions
Yes.
at this event, but also you said every time you come to White Plains, you blow the shofar.
Sure.
And so tell us why you do this.
Why I do this because I want to remember everyone in the Holocaust, and not only the Holocaust people, but everyone that suffer from anti-Semitism, lost their lives, and all the things that have been done to the Jews over the years. And I always remember them, because if I don't remember them, who is going to remember them? So I am the one who have to remember them. They are my ancestors. So I have to remember them. So each time I come to White Plains, I always come in here into the garden. I say the Mourner's Kaddish and I blow my shofar and be on my way.
Amazing. All right,
Yes.
so let's go.
Okay. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kadishanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lishmor kol shofar.
Wow. Wow, that's awesome. So there's an idea of the shofar is that you can literally open up the heavens, right? And the idea that it reaches like so many, like the soul of people. And it's a beautiful way to remember. So
Yes.
thank you.
I do this every day because when I remember the IDF soldiers, I also do it. I say you're in battle. You can't say the Amida. You probably can say the Shema. And what else prayers can you share if you don't remember? So if you don't remember the prayers, you don't have the time to say the prayers, I have to be the one to stand in the gap.
Well, thank you so much.
Yes, you're welcome.
As you can see, Yom HaShoah is a very powerful day of remembrance. It's also important to understand that even though we've lost so much, we move forward together. The Jewish community and our allies coming together at this event shows the power of allyship, the power of saying together, never again, is really now. This is Aaron Herman, and thank you for watching.